The question Anthony Albanese still hasn't been asked about his voice. And it's amazing because this is the question that proves the voice is a dud. It's a dead end. It's a disaster. Mind you, even before I tell you that question, the Prime Minister's voice, this kind of Aboriginal-only advisory parliament in our Constitution, it's already crumbling under his feet. I mean, you've got two polls, Newspoll and Redbridge, now say it's going to crash at the referendum later this year. The Redbridge poll yesterday is actually the most recent. It says 56% of Australians are now against the voice. In fact, they're against it now in every single state, even in red Victoria, which I find amazing. And what's most killing the voice, I think, is that Albanese won't or can't tell people how it will work. Another factor, of course, the fear that people rightly have, what this voice will demand, what it will lead to. I mean, you've got activists already talking treaties, reparations, self-government. But like I say, I'm amazed that no one's asking Anthony Albanese the most basic question. The Prime Minister, where has your plan, a voice followed by a treaty, ever worked? Now, it's true, Albanese did go to the Garma Festival in Arnhem Land this weekend and did, claim that he found the voice right here in Australia already.
This was an opportunity for us to listen. And indeed, in the Dillac Council is an example of exactly how a voice with local structures can work, giving a voice to Canberra about how we achieve better results, because we know that when we listen to people who are directly affected by issues, you get better outcomes. You can see and feel and touch the success of what a voice will look like.
And it's right. There's this Dillac Council representing 13 clans of the northeast Arnhem Land, and it does meet regularly with the federal and territory governments to set policies on health, housing, education, the economy. And you're thinking, well, if it's already there, why does Albanese need a voice in the Constitution? Hello? Anyway, so we've got this voice actually in action right now, says Albanese. But what are the results? Has anyone asked? Are Aborigines really better off? Well, I can't see it for myself. You take the Yirrkala school, which is in the hometown of the Yunupingu family. This has dominated this Yolngu clan up there. It's just over half the children. Just over half turned up to school in the first term of last year. Similar stats the rest of the year. If you can't even get your kids to school, what good are you? What hope have you got? More stats. Compared to other Northern Territorians, Yirrkala Aborigines, 50% more likely to have diabetes, twice more likely to be unemployed. They've got a third of the median personal income. And around the world, it's the same. Albanese's race politics, treating Indigenous peoples as somehow a race apart, needing their own race-based self-government, has been a disaster. Not that Australia's media has bothered to actually check that when they burble about how fine things are overseas with treaties.
New Zealand, Canada, Sweden, the US have all negotiated treaties with Indigenous peoples. Why is it such a drama to discuss one in Australia?
Why don't we look at these shining examples of English-speaking countries which did make treaties with their Indigenous people, unlike us backward Australians. And let's ask if they really did make Indigenous people healthier and wealthier relative to everyone else. All right, New Zealand had a treaty with the Maori since 1840. Now interpreting that treaty to give Maori equal say over water resources and health resources. Results? Well, the Maori are still 3 times more likely to be jailed, for instance, twice more likely to be unemployed, 3 times more likely to have children in care. They also die on average more than 7 years earlier. Doesn't sound to me like success. Let's look at Canada. Signed more and more treaties with First Nations tribes since the first one in 1763. Again, Indigenous children 7 times more likely to need foster care. Adults 7 times more likely to be in jail. 50% more likely to be unemployed. And what's more, the more self-government they get, the worse the results. First Nations people living in their own reserves earn half what Indigenous people off the reserves do. First Nations people in their own settlements tend to be poorer and unhealthier than those assimilated into cities and towns. And you see the same here. The more assimilated, the more likely Aborigines are to live richer and longer lives. Take the United States, same thing. There, American Indians, 40% more likely to kill themselves, 38% more likely to be jailed. Indian men tend to die 5 years younger than white men, nearly twice more likely to be unemployed. And once again, it's worse where they live in more Indian ways governing themselves, which is the Albanese plan. Navajo Nation is the biggest of America's 326 Indian reservations. It's larger than Tasmania. And its government boasts that 82% of its people still practice the traditional Navajo lifestyle. Yet, despite its oil, gas, uranium and casinos, unemployment is more than 40%, and 40% of families live below the poverty rate. The Navajo are also twice more likely to kill themselves. Are you getting the message here? You know, they can blame colonisation all they like and blame the white man, why the hell not? And again, that's all you hear. But it's the politics of victimhood that's also an excuse for not taking responsibility and for the failures you see. See, the missing element here, the missing insight is that Indigenous culture also counts. If you want Western wealth and Western health, you need Western ways. Old tribal ways do not cut it. And the Voice, given that, is just going to make all this worse, not better. When you set up a race-based system like that, the Indigenous leaders who tend to come to power are the ones who stress they're racially different and they're victims. That's how this works. Otherwise, why would they have this separatist power? Those that have assimilated and don't rely on race-based perks to get ahead, they don't get a look in a system like that, even though they represent a healthier future and not this failed past to which Albanese's Voice is going to chain us. Just look overseas.